Greetings, everyone. Welcome again to Spinistry Chat. Spinistry Chat number 101, and the numbers have actually kind of started arbitrarily. I know we have over 100 videos over the years, but for for people that are wanting to reference things going forwards, we started the numbering sequence at 100 to actually number the videos. And this one I'm calling Back in the Saddle. We're doing a little bit of an update of our bike packing tutorial series that we started earlier in 2021 that we kind of had to unexpectedly put a pause on, and we're hoping to bring it back to where we intended to be at this point. The timing's a little off, but we're moving forward with the concept, calling it Back in the Saddle, because part of the tutorial series was a fundamental aspect of bike packing is fitness, and I will link to the overview on our fitness idea that we had, concept that we had earlier in the year. That'll be linked in the video description. But this is the update that was supposed to happen some time ago, but because of basically it's not back to normal. We all know that, but it's like the switch got turned on and we had to hop back into putting on events that when we were originally planning to do this, it didn't look like we were quite ready to come back to this volume of events. Uh, Not a complaint. We're happy to be doing events again, but it's been 6 months of kind of catching up and relearning how to do some of these things, and we've kindly found our rhythm again. So there were some other pieces in the mix, but the plan where I left off on this was that, hey, I was going to myself take part in this fitness program to reinforce the basic message behind it. It's not a fitness program to tell you what to do. It's just a fitness program that I know has worked for me in the past, and I'm going to implement it again to get myself back in shape. Uh, Hopefully, the little preview there didn't, at the very beginning of the video, did not scare anyone off. We're actually 6 weeks into the first 12-week module, so kind of consider this a 6-week update of where we're at on this basic fitness schedule. And let's kind of reframe this. We're going to go back to when I put this together. I believe it was February. And the way things happen, basically events came back in March. So it was like this, we put this program, this video together in February to help people train for the multi-day trips like our Big Bend trips, which we're about to have another one in November. Hopefully you can join us for that. And do this. But then we got back to our mass start events with the Red River Riot. We opened that up and had 300 people sign up for it almost right away. And it was clear that people were wanting to do the traditional mass start events again, even though some safety protocols were still needed and that sort of thing. And so we kind of shifted back over to that, and then it got to be summer. It's too dang hot to do multi-day adventures for the most part. But let's go back to where I left off at, where I was about to start the training program. I had a little bit of a setback too, so I got pushed back, but we'll talk more in depth about that. So I've been off the bike for almost 3 years. It's actually now over 3 years that we got pushed back a little bit further. The fundamental aspect is I was hit by a car in 2017 and was completely off the bike for a bit. Got back on the bike to attempt my RAT 1000 attempt that I completed about 550 miles of. And then a few months after that, still having some after effects, physically and psychologically from being hit by the car. Some different things came about that I'd been off the bike for a while. I had knee surgery uh, early February, and it was actually it was one of those things. It was at that point it was needed. I I was barely functional in one of my knees, and that was needed to even consider getting back in shape and getting back on the bike. And I can tell you that that made a huge difference, and it did enable me to push forward. And when I laid out this plan at that time, I had already had the knee surgery, and I could tell that it was going to be extremely positive. It's been extremely successful as far as I'm concerned. I did have a little bit of a setback for several weeks after I made this video originally in February. So that slowed down my getting back on the bike and onto my training plan a little bit, but I overcame that, and we'll go over the updates of when the pieces came together. The fundamental aspect is we're starting this out. I'm extremely overweight, and I was extremely more overweight back in February, and got a little bit more overweight leading up to starting this in basically June. Um, the little preview video I had, hopefully that didn't scare anyone off. That's actually, I've made a lot of progress to get to that point. So, not trying to toot my own horn or anything like that, but basically, as of this morning, I'm 240 pounds and back on the bike in a limited extent within the training plan framework. That's roughly down from 275. Don't know exactly where I was when I started. Again, we'll go a little bit more in depth on that. Uh, Definitely through 2020, I was very, very sedentary. It's a combination of COVID-19 and my knee getting worse along the way. And there was probably the two kind of work together. When I say a byproduct of COVID-19, not so much that I was ill with it. It was just everything that was going on in 2020. We just weren't doing stuff. So I was much less active, probably aided in some more pounds coming on, and the more pounds that came on, it abused the knee that much more, sort of thing. But it was one of those things. It wasn't obviously that much of a correlation. Now that the weight's coming off, and even after the surgery, as more weight comes off and more exercise on the knee, the combination of all that, the knee's getting just better and better each day, which is fantastic. I still have. I'm not comfortable with riding in traffic or on the roads right now. So been doing mostly uh, smart trainer training. But in the past couple weeks, I have also started some outdoor riding. We'll go more in depth on that. So yeah, indoor riding focus to start. I knew it was going to take that just to get basically in shape, but I also want to do that to reinforce that the indoor cycling does accomplish a lot. And we'll talk some more about that in a future video. We've got some really good content in mind around that. And for anyone that's on the surface going, well, where are you going with this, Kevin? What are you trying to do? I don't have a specific goal. My goal is to be healthier. My goal is to get back on the bike. My goal is to enjoy being on the bike again. And my goal for sharing this information is to hopefully uh, people that are wanting to go to that next level in their fitness, uh, basically show them how straightforward it really can be. I'm not saying that I'm at the end of the line. Again, this is a 6 week checkup in the first 12 week component at the most fundamental level, and I've got an additional complication in there where I have just so much weight I need to lose, that it even makes the plan, it skews some fundamental aspects of it, that if it's just somebody that's wanting to be a stronger rider and get prepared for multi-day bike packing trips, for example, having to lose this much weight throws a lot of complications into that. It's a lot simpler if you're only a few pounds overweight, just want to, take down that extra 10 to 15 pounds. Or if that's not an issue at all, you just want to get back in shape for multi-day riding, this is a very, very simple and straightforward plan to follow. So I guess without further ado, make sure there isn't another piece to this. 12-week real world checkup will come 6 weeks from now. And again, without further ado, we're going to go into where I've started in getting back in shape. The 12-week program that we're referencing here is specifically on the cycling fitness aspect of it. I needed to start losing weight itself prior to getting back on the bike. So this whole process of me losing, at this point, about 35 pounds, that started roughly June 14th. And I'm just showing my Google Calendar here. That said, basically on June 14th, that's when I started a diet that I knew I had to start losing weight. The main thing was, to be honest with you, I knew that I needed to be under 250 pounds to be able to depend on my smart trainer at that point. It had a 250 pound capacity. I had several years of use and abuse on it. And I realize those weight ratings aren't usually precise to the pound, but from trying it out at heavier weights before, there was a little bit of creaking and moaning. I knew 275 was going to be too much, and I'm guessing at 275. I don't know exactly how much I weighed at this point. I was scared to get on a scale, but actually the main thing was the scale we had at the time I knew was completely unreliable. It wasn't that it was just not calibrated correctly. You could stand on it and it would say 275 pounds, let's say. You'd step off, get back on it, and then it would say 265. So I knew there was no way to depend on that scale. So I didn't even use it as a general reference because I knew it would be way off. But I know that when I had my surgery in February, I was like, I want to say 268, 269 pounds. Um, and I know I put on some weight after that. And quite frankly, one of the main motivations that, yeah, it's time to get serious about this, Kevin. I was serious about it in February, but like I said, then all of our events started kicking off, and just lost focus on the fitness aspect of things. Um, because I knew that was going to be something that took focus and diligence and discipline. Discipline's the key to it. There's no doubt about that. And to start the discipline process, you have to be in the right frame of mind to go, okay, we're going forward now, and we're going to do it in a discipline. You have to, at least I have to be in the right frame of mind. Probably the biggest thing that took me over the edge at this timing was I literally got to the point where I had to get some 3X clothes just to be comfortable. And it's like, all right, that's really going on. Don't make no mistake. 2XL, that's too much. 1XL, that's too much. Uh, I'm a stocky guy by nature, so I'm probably, when I'm where I'm supposed to be, I should be a large. I don't think I'll ever be a medium. Uh, and I can carry an XL okay to a point. But yeah, 2XL, 3XL, yeah, that's way over the line. 3XL was way over the line. So that was the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak. June 14th, I started my diet. I'm not going to go real in depth on that. Diets are really personal. What works for one person is not going to work for another. Just the really, really rough outline on mine is it's whole foods based, no sugar, uh, almost no alcohol. And it isn't that alcohol isn't allowed. It's not. I just know that I'm one of those. If I have two drinks, it turns into six, sort of thing. And once you get to that level, that's just so much extra calories brought in, no matter what you're drinking. There's no way to do it. So there's no sugar, almost no processed foods, all whole foods, basically meat and vegetables, meat, fish, vegetables, sort of thing. Um, Again, we're not going to go in depth for the diet because different diets work well, for others. I know this has worked for me in the past, and I'm fine tuning it this time around to work even better for me. So June 14th, I was around 275 pounds, and I started on the diet alone. And I want to bring this point up now because I knew this was going to be a complicating factor for me personally because I've run into it in the past, and it did turn out to be. But we'll talk about that more shortly when we get to that point in the calendar. I knew I needed to focus on the diet at least for the first bit and get the ball rolling there and feel good about the diet that I had was working for me and leading to weight loss and that sort of thing. But I also knew that if I introduced cycling and exercise too early in the mix, for me, it can be kind of counterproductive. It's hard. It's very hard for me anyway. I think it's hard for a lot of people to actually lose weight and exercise at the same time. If the focus is losing weight, when you throw the exercise itself into the mix, it can complicate things because when you exercise it, it's calories your body's expending. It can make you hungrier. Is the nuts and the bolts of it, um, and and particularly if you do longer efforts, harder efforts, and your body burns a lot of calories in those efforts, your body's going to want to replenish those calories. I'm one of those. I just cannot go to bed hungry. So I need to do a diet that satiates me, and uh, if I'm trying to fall asleep hungry, I just won't be. I'll be up all night until I eat something. So to do a high effort cycling or exercise regimen while I'm trying to lose from 275 to wherever I'm going, that's complicated for me to pull off. I don't think most people are in this situation though. Um, so the focus on the front end was to get the diet going, to start dropping pounds and make sure that fundamental aspect was worked out. And then we would start throwing the exercise into the mix. So that was June. We roll into July. I knew I needed to be not sedentary uh, after a few weeks, but I knew I also wasn't quite ready to get on the bike yet. Again, because I was still just too heavy to be on the smart trainer. But I also know from other things I needed to do other exercise besides just cycling. And when we get probably at the 12-week update, we'll go a lot more in depth on this aspect of things. But if cycling is your only source of exercise, particularly if you're in your 40s, going into your 50s, or even older, you need to throw other things into the mix. If riding your bike is the only way you get your exercise, please consider throwing other things into the mix, even if it costs you some cycling training time. Basically, the nuts and the bolts of it are cycling doesn't do enough to uh, it makes our bodies efficient at turning pedal cranks is basically all it does, which can burn calories, but it's not a load bearing exercise. So there's some osteoporosis issues for men and women both. But we have a lot more muscles in our bodies than just our legs is basically what it boils down to. I've from the past been a fan of the Concept 2 rowers, so I've been wanting to get one for some time. I use this training program and this fitness program for myself to be justification to go ahead and make that investment in a Concept 2 rower. So on July 11th, I started my rowing regimen just to get out of sedentary mode and start doing some sort of exercise that definitely incorporated. That's the beauty of rowing. It's probably covers, I think, rowing and swimming are the two exercises that work more muscles and joints and tendons and ligaments and everything than pretty much anything else out there. So July 11th, I started doing some rowing on the Concept 2. Nothing crazy, nothing strenuous, maybe 15, 20 minutes every other day. sort of thing, just to start doing some exercising. And I also wanted to use that as a gauge to make sure my diet was working with starting to throw some exercise in there without it complicating things, increasing the hunger factor, things like that. So then we roll into August, and this was when I invested finally in a scale and started tracking my weight. And again, this is mostly diet at this point. But I knew I had it was obvious I had lost some weight to myself and my wife. So August 2nd, Monday check in, I was 253 pounds. I was still above that 250-pound threshold that I'd been looking for to start doing the smart trainer again. And so I was kind of using that as a carrot. I have to set mini goals. It doesn't do me well to say, oh, I need to lose this huge amount of weight, sort of thing. I have to set the interim goals of I'm going to do this. If once I get to this, I can do this or justify that sort of thing. And I guess the rower was actually part of that. I had to prove to myself that I'd stick to the diet. Then I went ahead and made the investment in the rower. Um, you know, I set that benchmark of getting to 250 pounds before I would start doing the smart trainer again. It didn't involve investing in the smart trainer as one I already had, but I knew I needed to get to that point and be disciplined enough to get to that point to feel confident that I could start the training program. Um, so basically, about the 16th, I'm trying to remember this correctly, exactly how the sequence went. The nuts and the bolts of it were this. Probably around the 16th here when I don't have a weight, because I wasn't making a point to weigh myself every week yet, just checking in on progress. The 9th, I was down to 251. I'm sure the week of the 16th, I was confident I was down to 250 or less. Working from memory here. Uh, and I set up the smart trainer and I did a couple rides to make sure everything was working. And I was planning to start my smart trainer sessions, I do believe, the week of the 23rd. And like my second ride on my old smart trainer, I was, right at that 250-pound point and it broke. Now, that said, I don't think that 250-pound riding session broke it. That was a smart trainer that I had put a ton of hours in, a ton of miles on. Um, it had lived its life, and like I said, I had heard it creaking and objecting for some time the last few times I'd ridden it. So I wasn't confident that it was going to last, and it finally did give out. So thanks to my friend Sean, he lent me his old smart trainer. I was able to start the training session basically the end of August going into September. So the training plan the training plan was basically 6 hours of riding each week, very at low to moderate at most intensity. Again, this is just pedaling the bike an hour a day is what I'm trying to do, and not trying to get a super strenuous workout. Again, the focus is on the diet at this point. I knew I needed to introduce regular exercise, and I knew I was going to need to keep check of how that exercise affected my diet and my hunger and things like that. So basically, the first week of September was week one, 5.5 hours of a planned 6 hours. And I went down to 246 pounds. I also started doing some body measurements at this point as well, because I knew from previous experience that there would be times that I was actually picking up weight but still losing fat. And you start building some muscle and other aspects when the exercise is thrown into the mix. I am one of those that I do bulk up fairly easily. That's another reason that I'm being very focused on not super strenuous cycling exercise yet. Um, I'm one of those people that I have the calves that people would kill for, because if I do a little bit of mashing, my legs bulk up. And when your legs bulk up, that's a lot of weight that's added on. Not that that's necessarily a bad thing, but when you're focused on trying to lose weight, it's hard to differentiate muscle gain versus fat loss. And to be perfectly honest with you, and we'll go a little bit more in depth on it here shortly, it can get discouraging. You feel like you're doing everything right, but you're picking up weight. Even if you can rationalize to yourself that, well, it's probably some of that's muscle weight, that can also be counterproductive where you're rationalizing that to yourself. Oh, well, it's just muscle weight. And I got caught up in this in 2011 when I did a similar training plan. I was training up for Dirty Kanza. So which I was really building up focusing on building up my endurance and saddle time and continuous riding and things like that. And my body weight kept increasing because when you're riding that much more, you have to take in more calories. You can't ride 6 hour days and not eat. It just doesn't work. But how much do you eat when you're also trying to lose fat? So it was in 2011. I think if I remember right, I probably went from like 205 to 220. I mean, when I got to that 220 point, it was obvious that it wasn't just muscle mass at that point, but a good bit of it was muscle mass. And my endurance was fantastic. I was in great riding shape, but instead of trying to take 205 pounds, 200 miles in Kansas, I was trying to take 220 pounds, 200 miles in Kansas. We'll go more in depth on that one somewhere down the road. That was a fundamental mistake that I learned from, and I'm trying to avoid going forward very specifically. So after week one, the weight was down to 246. Waist was 43 and a quarter. Belly, and yes, this is embarrassing, 49 inches. After the next week, training time. This includes rowing in here, but rowing at this point is not, it's almost all cycling. We're doing a little bit of rowing at the moment, and we'll be doing some more in the future. But at the moment, we're trying to find our baseline between diet and cycling. That is the focus. Week two, it ended up being 7 hours, but that included some rowing. The weight went up to 249, so that was cause for concern. But the waist, oh, I'm sorry, the waist measurement actually showed going up a quarter of an inch as well. But the belly fat went down, and it was visually noticeable as well. I think that particular week, I actually had a higher salt intake, so it was basically water retention and a sodium bump that uh, the body weight and the waistline. I was just carrying, and for lack of a better term, I think I remember feeling jiggly that week, for lack of a better term. So I think I was carrying a little bit of extra water weight from, I know I had some higher salt intake that week for various reasons. So I questioned myself, is this a sodium bump? Because the belly fat reduction indicates something was going right there in the fat reduction. The following week, 6.5 hours on the bike, weight dropped back down to 244, and the waist measurement went down a touch, and the belly measurement went down another inch as well. So obviously going the right direction here. Um, that's 3 weeks in. So, this is a 12-week module. There's kind of it. You divide that out in 3 week segments, and you kind of, at least for me, it's 3 weeks of work, and you kind of feel a different level of fitness. 6 weeks is another 12 weeks, and 9 weeks will be another little bump there. It's not a day-to-day progression. It's noticeable progression every 3 weeks is kind of the way it works for me when I'm on a discipline program. But that total 12-week module, for lack of a better term, That's really that's a night and day difference. You can 12 weeks down the road, if you're following a plan, you're going to be substantially different. It's that simple. And you can be at this point here and start that next 12-week program from where you're at, and you're going to see somewhat comparable progression as well. It is one of those things, I'm starting at a very low bar, so the progressions are going to be significant the first 12 weeks and probably the next 12 weeks after that. From that point on, you get kind of to the diminishing returns aspect. But we'll talk about that way down the road, if hopefully if we get there. So week 4, uh, it's like I said, we're kind of at that next fitness level, and I could feel it on the bike. Uh, Having to rein myself in because I felt like I wanted to ride harder. I felt like I wanted to ride longer, but I knew if I did those things, it was likely to be counterproductive to the diet. So starting in week 4, I was at 244, 42 and 3/4, and 45 and a half. So a little bit lesser weight loss. Measurements aren't going down quite as much. And then week 5, kind of a stall at that 244, 42 and a half, 45. Again, not much difference there, but I was feeling stronger on the bike, but I could also tell that I was eating more. And it's not like I was going, to the refrigerator in the middle of the night and eating half a German chocolate cake, or, getting a pizza delivered at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and eating nothing like that. It was just, you know, an extra piece of meat here, on my salad or whatever else, a handful of nuts there, sort of thing, extra that I hadn't been doing before. Um, and again, I was getting stronger. I could feel it in my legs, but it reinforced my basic concern that if I pushed too hard on the bike or put too much saddle time in too early, it would be counterproductive for at what at this time for me is the true focus of I got to get I have to shed so many pounds. That has to be my focus right now. So it helps me stay disciplined on sticking to this plan that I talked about. Again, we'll link to the details of the plan in the comments section. Um, it's focused on the first 12 weeks, just doing no more than 60 minutes a day. And this is helping me stick to that. So this, week 5 into week 6, I had to reframe my head that I need to focus on the diet and, think twice before I, you know, throw that extra piece of turkey into the salad or whatever else. Um, and I shifted that. I kept the writing up. I actually included uh, going from week 5 into week 6. I started including some real world cycling in the mix, which felt wonderful, um, but still not in traffic. It was mostly uh, bi- bicycle trails, not single track yet. Head's still not quite there for single track for various reasons. But just doing some paved and gravel bicycle trails that got thrown into the mix. Really enjoyed that. I'm looking forward to more outdoor riding. So got refocused on the diet, threw that into the mix, and as of today, down to 240. The waistline went down to 42, and the belly measurement down to 45. So I think refocusing back on the the diet aspect and reinforcing to not overdo the cycling at the moment, and that's really hard for me, to be perfectly honest with you. I'm wanting to go out there and try a 50-mile ride and see what that's like. To I'm wanting to do some high intensity intervals in the mix. It's just not time to do that yet. I need to get through this first 12 weeks. here's a breakdown of the actual training and how everything has been going. A little bit, a couple of days of just making sure the hardware was working, and then we rolled into the activities themselves. You see, it's mostly cycling with an occasional row in the mix. I do want to throw more rowing back into things, and that might be where I may kind of cheat myself a little bit, where I may take the overall activity up over 6 hours a week, do 6 hours of cycling, and then throw maybe another hour a week of rowing into the mix. Because I do like the rowing, to be perfectly honest with you. I do like the cycling both. And I just feel like I need to do more. And maybe I'm cheating myself. And that discipline aspect of holding back is important as well. But just doing a quick, here's the week to week, just going and doing something every day. And that's the main focus of the training program. Force yourself to do 45 to 60 minutes of riding a day, one way or another. Don't plan for off days, because life's going to make them happen anyway. When you see an off day in here, it wasn't a planned off day. It was something came up, where we couldn't do it. Last week was the first week I actually had 2 off days, and this one, actually, here's a really good example. Uh, Thursday is a perfect example of, you know what? I've done really, really good. I'm just going to take a day today. I'm not going to ride the bike. I won't miss any other days this week. So I let my discipline skip that day. I could have very easily, it's not even forcing myself. If I had just gotten on the bike, I'd have been fine. But I let myself get a little bit lazy on Thursday and I didn't ride. Uh, and I'm not trying to guilt myself out here. I'm just reinforcing my own basic premise. Make yourself ride if you have the opportunity to. Because then Sunday came up and we're doing rat week. I had every intention of riding Sunday. I had the bike with me and the pieces just did not come together. By the time I was able to ride on Sunday, it was almost 90 degrees. Uh, had some nasty weather on the way. I had riders out on the course that I wanted to make sure they were okay and weren't going to get stranded or anything like that. So Sunday just worked out where it really wasn't feasible to ride the bike when I had every intention of riding the bike. If I would have ridden Thursday like I would have planned, I would have been on schedule for the week. As it is, I ended up 55 minutes short. Is it the end of the world? No, of course not. And I'm not trying to paint that picture. I have no additional guilt about it. Um, but it just reinforces to me that going forward, when I have the opportunity, I am going to ride. And again, what is this fundamentally all about? For me, I put this training plan together that I know works for me, but I want to show it to other people. If you want to do multi-day riding adventures, it doesn't you don't have to go out and do the rat to learn how to do the rat. You don't have to go out and do the Tour Divide to do the Tour Divide or the Arkansas High Country Ride or whatever else. You just have to have a basic level of fitness and where your body is used to riding every day. And you just, over time, slowly ramp that up. And I bring that up because right now we're in Rat 1000 week. Let's do a refresh on this page and see where people are. Zooming in here, and I'll give it a minute. Sometimes that glitches out the video feed when I'm screen sharing. And morning of Tuesday morning, and we have a group of rat riders still on course. It's actually turning into a pretty good race this year. Everybody's really close together. Everybody overnighted in Henrietta together last night, and Sean McAfee's out front, but the other three are close on his heels, and these three could even be riding together, just the way the tracker updates come up at different intervals for each rider. It sometimes shows a gap that may or may not be there. But Peter, John, and Matt, uh, they're hot on Sean's heels, and they basically started Saturday morning, and if they get through the day today and make it to Vernon, this is Tuesday, they'll have gone 550 miles. I know Sean's having some issues with his Achilles and other things. Peter's doing his fifth, I do believe, rat. Uh, John and Matt, this is their first rat, but I know Matt does multi-day stuff fairly regularly. I think this might be a new adventure for John. I'm interested to hear his feedback on how things went. But if they the if they make it to Vernon today, that's about 550 miles right here. And I think Sean's maybe slowing down here, or maybe his tracker's not tracking. Hopefully his Achilles is holding up. Um, if they make it to Vernon, that's 550 miles. The halfway point is right here at 287 at Harold. There's a 7-Eleven right here. It's not showing on this map, but that's like dead at 501 miles or something like that. Uh, Vernon is that's as far as I made it on my rat attempt. When I stopped my rat attempt, though, it wasn't a physical. I could have definitely kept riding. Uh, I'm always going to say at least one more day. I encourage rat riders to never ride with the end in mind. Just ride to complete the next day. Um, if you're able to start the ride and start pedaling and get five miles down the road, just finish that day, sort of thing. Uh, when I overnighted in Vernon, and I literally didn't make it out of town. It's like I just don't feel like doing this anymore. But it wasn't a physical limitation. I could have kept pedaling the bike. Uh, the multi-day stuff, yes, saddle sores are an issue. Yes, Achilles flare-ups are an issue. Those are things that you learn to work with, and that's part of do as much multi-day riding, even if it's shorter distances. Your body tells you where its shortcomings might be that you need to prepare around. The hard part is the mental aspect of it. It's real easy to start coming up with lots of reasons why you shouldn't go on anymore. We call them quit monsters. Uh, it's not it may be fear of a physical issue. Oh, I felt a twinge in my hamstring. If I keep doing this, I sure hope I don't blow out my hamstring. Yeah, that can create that quit monster that just eats away in your head. But it can even be just stuff like, gee, I wonder if my dog misses me. I wonder if my kids miss me. Uh, is the business going to fall apart if I'm not there? And when you're out there pedaling 120 miles a day, 150 miles a day, and you're out there by yourself, even if it's pretty scenery, you have these things rolling in your head that build upon themselves. And that's part of the discipline aspect of it. If you're interested in doing these multi-day adventures, 2 or 3 days, that's all physical. Um, to get past that third day, it takes a lot of mental fortitude to pull that off. And generally speaking, where these guys are at right now, they're in the meat of the mental struggle of it right here. Between Henrietta between Henrietta and Childress, but definitely, yeah, Childress. This is a 2 day stretch here. This is all mental games through here. You got to motivate yourself several times a day to keep pushing forward. And that's why the discipline aspect starts to come in to play. The physical aspect is actually fairly easy. Just get on a basic training plan, put yourself in shape to do whatever you want whenever it fits into your schedule. That's the idea. To plan your life around, I'm going to do the tour divide in 3 years or something. Maybe that works for some people. For most people, it's that's just justification for procrastination. Oh, well, that's 3 years from now. Oh, that's 2.5 years from now. Oh, that's 2 years from now. I've still got time to get started. The focus is to be at a fitness level all the time that if something unexpectedly comes available, if time unexpectedly comes available, and all of a sudden rat week's here, and I, by gosh, I do have that time available. I wasn't expecting that, but this big conference we were supposed to have at work got pushed back. I can take that week and go do the rat. The idea is to always be at the fitness level where you can attempt any of the adventures you want to at any time. So along those lines, we just want to reinforce that not just our Rat 1000, which we're in right now, and not just our Texas Chainring Massacre, which is our biggest event each year and just around the corner in January. Uh, a lot of the stuff we do at Spinistry is focused on giving people the opportunity to enjoy riding their bikes, to up their fitness, to help with their overall training objectives week in and week out. We've always got something in the mix. Uh, the end of this month, we have our Fright Fest at Irwin Park. For those that are working on endurance mountain biking skills, there's a 100-mile race option there. That's a lot of boxes to check off if you're on a training plan and wanting to see what your next level is. Not up to 100 miles yet. There's nothing wrong with that. Go out and see how far you can go. If for me, when I did my rat, that was the thing. I didn't know if I even could feasibly pull it off. I had no comprehension. Is this something I can do? And I had to go out. The only way you can find out if it's possible is to go out and do it. And that was probably my biggest checkbox of why I didn't continue my rat. I got to that point in Vernon. I was confident that if I kept riding, and sure, there can be a mechanical failure or a crash or something like that. But as far as fitness was concerned and knowing how to go multi-day, day-to-day on the bike, I was confident that I was physically able to complete the 1,000 miles. But at that point, I just wasn't invested. The 1,000-mile accomplishment wasn't enough of a goal for me. My goal subconsciously is just to see if it was feasible or not. I got confident that it was feasible, and I didn't have any motivation to push through that next mental challenge at that point. And I'm fine with that because at that point, the 1,000 miles was not a goal of mine. At this point, me doing 1,000 miles on the rat is not necessarily a goal. It could be at some point, but oh man, I am getting the itch just for some multi-day stuff in general, and I'm having to really hold back to get. I need to get my weight in the right place to address that properly. So that's my carrot now to help me keep losing the weight I need to lose. I want to be positioned where it makes sense for me to train up for true multi-day stuff. So again, 100 miles at Irwin Park, mountain biking. Don't think you can do 100 miles, but don't know what you can do. Go out there, do 40 miles. Go out there, do 50, 75, whatever, just to see where your benchmark is at that time. Now, that said, we have other races and distances as well. We have a one-lap beginners race. We have juniors racing. We have a three-lap cash payout race. So all sorts of variables there. For our gravel folks, November 6th, we'll be back up at our friends at 4R Ranch Vineyards and Winery and doing our Roadrunner Rocks fall event. If the timing's right, we'll have some beautiful fall colors to ride through. If not, it's still going to be gorgeous there regardless. Some of the best riding you'll ever do, and all sorts of different distances from everyone from the beginner to the most experienced. For those of you interested in multi-day bike packing, that sort of thing, we're going to have a semi-supported uh, Spinistry's Big Bender for Club Spinistry members at Big Bend National Park, November 12th weekend. That's the Friday. Overnight Friday, start riding Saturday morning, finish riding Monday morning, sort of thing. But if you're able to self-support, you can come down just for a Saturday, Sunday weekend as well. If you're wanting to get introduced to bike packing, for example, this is a good opportunity to do it. We'll have the Spinistry mobile along the way as support, or if it ends up I don't have enough bags to carry everything, or I started out carrying it, I don't want to carry all these bags, just throw it in the back of the truck and we'll take it to the next overnight spot for you. Turkey burn for mountain bikers again. That's a classic right there. Gravel riders, Holiday Ramble, December 4th. These other two that are showing on here, those are self-directed routes for Club Spinistry members to do their own rides. And then January 22nd, we'll throw some other stuff into January as well, but for those that are racing focused, January 22nd, Texas Chainring Massacre, the fastest 100 miles on gravel anywhere, cash payout, and the premier event is the 100 miler this year, and we think y'all are going to be really impressed with this year's route. It is going to be a change up from what we've done in the past to some extent. I think it's a really good mix of stuff. Going to show most of y'all some new roads that we haven't used for the Chainring Massacre in the past. All right, so that's kind of my update, 6-week check-in on a 12-week fitness module. Again, the highlights are basically down 35-ish pounds. Don't know exactly how much, but I think that's probably a fair bet. The focus on losing weight is a complication of trying to get to a basic level of bike fitness as well. So I'm trying to combine the two with the focus on losing weight. I'm not going to say that I have a goal to be to X number of pounds in X number of weeks or anything like that. I need to focus on a little bit shorter term goals, one at a time. My 250 was the first goal, to get from 275 to 250 to start riding the bike again. I probably want to get down under 220. And then that'll be a benchmark that gives me the okay to up the intensity some more. I'm gonna really try to stick to through the next 6 weeks of the 12-week modules, holding myself to the 60 or 6 hours a week, I should say. I might change up the timing a little bit. I might throw some 90-minute days in there and include an off day on the bike, but I'm going to try to still limit the cycling to 6 hours a week. And once I get the weight down to, I'm going to shoot for 220, then I'll look at putting higher intensities in there, some intervals and stuff like that, and see how it goes from there. And then I have another interim carrot that I'm looking at. That'll be a motivation, but I'm not sure what the weight benchmark will be for that carrot yet. When we do the 12-week update, I'll let folks know what that next level. It's a pretty big carrot for me. I'm looking forward to hopefully getting there, but that won't be the final destination either. That'll just be motivation to go to that next step beyond that. We welcome any comments, questions, concerns, feedback. The one thing I am going to ask is, don't ask me too much about the diet. Like I said, diets are very personalized. I know what has worked for me in the past. I know what hasn't worked for me in the past. What works for me doesn't necessarily mean it's right for you. The training program, I do believe, is something that can help a lot of people that are just needing to get into a fundamental discipline program and a fundamental routine so that they are in. It's really important. This is the big thing. I really think it's important for everybody to just always be at the right fitness level where they can go do anything they want to whenever they want to. And it's not that difficult to be there. It just it's a process. It's discipline and it's just staying on top of it, and it's not that hard to do. Um, I want to help people accomplish that. So particularly on the training program